Can we be seated, please? The procession is on its way. Please be seated. As the procession approaches the hall, we expect everyone in the congregation to stand up, please. On our feet, please. Can we stand on our feet, please?
Ẹ̀kọ́ dára púpọ̀, ẹ̀kọ́ ló láyé táwa yìí sẹ́. Ẹ̀kọ́ dára púpọ̀, ẹ̀kọ́ ló láyé táwa yìí sẹ́. Ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní dẹni gíga, ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní ìdèpò ọ̀la. Ẹ̀dá kúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa, lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa. Ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní dẹni gíga, ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní ìdèpò ọ̀la. Ẹ̀dá kúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa, lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa. Ẹ̀dá kúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa, lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa.
Hello? Please be seated. Hello? The Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwole Sikiru Banjo. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Adekunle Olarewaju Adeogun. The Bursar of the University, Mr. Kabir Kayode Ogunleye, FCA. The Acting University Librarian, Mr. Mansour Omotayo Kodri. Members of the University Governing Council, visiting Vice Chancellors, former principal officers of the university, the provosts, deans of colleges and student affairs, members of the University Senate, directors of centers and institutes, Your Royal Highnesses, heads of teaching and non-teaching departments, my Lord spiritual and temporal, families of the inaugural lecture presenter, distinguished staff, students, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of the management and the university community, welcome all our guests to Taisholari University of Education, Jebode, in Ogun State, Nigeria. Today, the university is having its 32nd inaugural lecture titled The Pilot's Dilemma in the Search for Utopia, Replicating Linguistic and Communicative Competencies in Institutions of Learning, to be delivered by Professor Bandele Adeboye Sogbesan, Professor of Discourse Analysis in the College of Humanities, Department of English Studies. Today's event, ladies and gentlemen, is an occasion of significance in the academic career of Professor Bandele Adeboye Sogbesan on his appointment to the full professorial chair in the university. Professor Bandele Adeboye Sogbesan was the former chairman, board of Taisholari University of Education, Secondary School, Igbeba, and director of Center for External Programs and Preliminary Studies, CEPS, of this great institution of higher learning. May I have the honor to invite the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oluwole Banjo, to declare the ceremony open.
By the power conferred on me by the Governing Council and the Senate of this university, I declare this inaugural lecture ceremony open. Thank you for coming. Happy listening.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now invite our inaugural lecture presenter, Professor Bandele Adeboye Sogbesan, to please rise and remain standing for the presentation of his citation.
Born well over 6 decades ago, late Mr. Daniel Adeshina Sogbesan, former manager, UAC, and pioneer account staff, Ajib Nigeria Limited, who died in 1986, and late Mrs. Comfort Adela Sogbesan, nurse and midwife at the Adeboye Hospital, Ibadan, and Lagos University Teaching Hospital, who died in 1967. Young Bandele started his educational career at the St. Jude's Primary School, Utopia, Methodist Boys High School, Lagos, Nigeria's second oldest secondary school. He attended Adiola Odutola College, Ijebu-Ode, for higher school certificate and proceeded to the University of Lagos for his Bachelor of Arts honors degree in English. At the age of 24 years, he joined the then Ogun State College of Education as a lecturer, but with an eye on a career in the corporate world. Therefore, registered for a professional master's degree in communication arts, but as fate would have it, he got to grow a passion for teaching and therefore stayed on. This change in career focus made him go for a postgraduate diploma in education, a master's degree, and a PhD in English with specialization in discourse analysis, all at the University of Ibadan. He has several scholarly journal articles, lectures, book chapters, and papers in conference proceedings to his credit. He has served the then College of Education and the university in many capacities: Head of Department of English, Dean, School of Languages, Taye Solarin College of Education, Pioneer Chairman, Committee of Deans, Taye Solarin College of Education, first indigenous head of Department of Languages in the College of Humanities, where he coordinated the first NUC accreditation exercise in 2007, together with the Dean, Professor Olufunke Lawal. He was a member of the Pioneer Governing Council of the University, member of the University Senate, coordinator, pre-degree, foundations, and science unit, Director, Center for External, Part-Time, and Preliminary Studies, Chairman, Taye Solarin University of Education Secondary School Governing Board, and Deputy Director, Taye Solarin University Human Resource Center. He served the then Taye Solarin College of Education as the college orator and became the university orator upon transition. He is the proud author of the tribute to Taye Solarin, always displayed in the university's convocation brochure. A man of many parts, Bandele Sogbesan, the unionist, headed the Taye Solarin College of Education Academic Staff Union Branch of COASO, assisted by Professor Abayomi Adibabu as vice chairman, where they succeeded in securing government payment of two-step salary enhancement for staff in 1994. The second College of Education in Nigeria to do so. He became the national PRO of the union and was in the 9-man Colleges of Education team that negotiated the then elongated university salary scale for tertiary institutions with the federal government in 1996. With the transformation, Taye Solarin College of Education to Taye Solarin University of Education in 2005, he was one of the union's ideologues and played a prominent role in resisting the state government's attempt to start the university in its early years. Outside school, he, as a Christian striving to serve as chairman, Evangelism Committee of the Holy Trinity Anglican Church of Balinde for over 10 years, member, Board of Mission and Evangelism of the Ijebu-Ode Anglican Diocese, chairman, Ijebu Anglican Diocesan Education Board, and member of the Church Parish Council for over 15 years. He is also a member of the Diocesan Board. He has served his alma mater, the Methodist Boys High School, Lagos, as a member of the Global Executive Council for 9 years, 3 as Assistant General Secretary, 3 as First Vice Chairman, and 3 as Ex-Official 1. He is currently the chairman of the Ogun State branch of the association. He is married to the strong, dutiful, and diligent Mrs. Ayodele Olabisi Sogbesan, an administrator in the university, and they are blessed with 2 young men, both engineers. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Professor Bandele Adeboye Sogbesan, Professor of Discourse Analysis, as he presents the university's 32nd inaugural lecture titled The Pilot Dilemma in the Search for Utopia, Replicating Linguistic and Communicative Competencies in Institutions of Learning.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this inaugural lecture. May I invite Professor Bandele Sogbesan to deliver his lecture. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the pilot's dilemma in the search for utopia, replicating linguistic and communicative competencies in institutions of learning. May I dedicate this sitting to him, the creator and giver of all, to the given, receiver in rapturous exaltation, and the gifts of life, and all that in it is. Mr. Vice Chancellor and Chairman, sir, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Registrar, the University Bursar, the Acting University Librarian, members of the University Senate, deans of colleges and academic directors, heads of academic and non-academic departments and units, academic and non-teaching staff, Your Royal Highnesses, my lords, spiritual and temporal, distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, great Tasudites, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, and distinguished audience, I stand before you this day, victim of a celestial terrestrial conspiracy to prosper me in spite of myself. I remain an awe-struck participant onlooker in a career journey begun with little more than mere passion for piloting a captive audience between a point of ignorance and a point of knowledge, to a present ardor to jumpstart in a growingly audacious audience a craving for relevant and applicable knowledge. Permit me to unveil to this distinguished audience the checkered tapestry of bumps and turns and moderate efforts at illuminating the unending tunnel of our modest academic sojourn so far, especially within the scope of linguistic and communicative competencies, their nurture, challenges, and strategies applied in navigating the maze. We shall then posit a few ideas which, in our humble opinion, could engrave footprints for succeeding travelers to tread upon. The raison d'etre of this presentation, the utopia, is an imaginary place of perfection to which everyone aspires, but none ever attains. To the teacher, especially the language teacher, a linguistic utopia is therefore a point of expressive excellence to which all aspire, but none can attain. The pilot aiming at Utopia is consequently a voyager who, though may never reach the destination, nonetheless advances reasonably towards perfection. In this case, linguistic perfection. Now, as it was in the beginning, language as a means of interpersonal communication is as old as man. Even the biblical account of the creation of man told us there was an Adam, there was an Eve. I'm sure there was communication between them using language. In Nigeria, English has become a fundamental means of transaction and interaction. And in spite of the Phillips-Stokes Commission report of 1922, which recommended that Nigerians should be taught in the language of their immediate environment, English has remained a primus inter pares in Nigeria, and it has resulted in the growth of local varieties of the language. For example, we have proverbs which indicate different parts of the country. I'll just give a few. Proverbs are the palm oil with which words are eaten. That highlights the importance of proverbs in local Nigerian discourse. Now in Nigeria, English language maintains its transactional role in formal gatherings, including this gathering, including formal education. But it has also expanded in scope, variety, and source, a blend of being a rule-governed tool for serious formal learning and engagement, and of casual banter and informal socialization activities, with its propensity for high informality, the flexibility of usage, and a relatively higher rate of lexical attrition. Other functions of language, including English, include to make requests, to instruct, to manipulate, that is to control actions of others, to inform or pass knowledge, to define concepts, to explore or investigate, and it is done to represent reality, as we do in storytelling, or to socialize and establish interpersonal relations. In the Nigerian situation, English was not native to us. I said was. Despite the stated expectation of education policy planners that English as a medium of formal instruction would only be employed after the first 3 years of schooling, what we see is that most parents will have their children go straight for English, right from the first few days. Parents speak English to their children. And in the early points of language acquisition of the children, from the point they begin to use one word, which is called the holophrastic stage, one word represents a sentence. Like the child says, carry. He wants somebody to carry or not to carry him. Sleep, when he wants to be helped to bed. To the point of two-word sentence between 18 and 24 months, words like mommy, go, which will mean mommy should go, or mommy should not go, or mommy has gone, whichever. Let's just watch for about a minute this replica of the two-word sentence.
Crying.
Mommy.
Yes.
Breast.
Why you're crying?
Mommy.
Yes. Breast. Breast. But that's not why you should cry now. Yes, darling.
Breast.
Okay, can we end it?
Take us.
Of course, we know what baby wants. Baby wants a soft breast. And those two words represent the desire of the baby. The two-word sentence. When he says food, eat, it means he wants to eat or he does not want to eat. It's left for mommy to interpret what that means. And from that, he proceeds to the telegraphic and early speech stages. Now, English language at this level performs largely instrumental or need-based functions and representational or naming functions. But as time went by, increased social pressures appear to have drastically eroded the commitment of both teachers and learners to scholarship, including in English. The town appears to be winning in the battle against the gown. English language, like the learning of any language, is no longer becoming fashionable. No wonder the Afro Juju maestro, Shina Peter, said, grammar no be money. How much grammar you know doesn't fetch you too much money these days. And like the Yoruba saying, Aja iwoyi, landesi ehoro iwoyi, a contemporary solution is best proffered to a contemporary problem. The English language curriculum needs to be tinkered with across educational levels to address contemporary language communication needs. Now, to handle this, there are two sides of languages. There is the side of linguistic competence and communicative competence. Linguistic competence refers to the unconscious knowledge and internalization of the grammar of a language that enables the user to use and understand the language correctly. That is, I know the rules of grammar, present tense, past tense, syntax, and so on. Communicative competence, on the other hand, is a social skill of identifying when, where, why, and how to use different styles of speaking and how to understand the context. I may know what to say, but not how to say it. I may know what to say and not know when to say it, and therefore I may be communicating the wrong things. The development of linguistic competence is based on a four-phased interrelated network of skill acquisition. Now, in the hierarchy of language skills, the first step is listening. Very simple. Just keep your eyes, ears open, and be attentive. And from that point, we move to the level of speaking. Most children who are unable to listen or hear will have problems progressing to the next stage of speaking. And from that next stage, we move to the level of reading. Now, reading skills, which involves interpreting graphic representation of thought, is a bit more complex. For instance, we have letters which we have to read and they represent sound. I'll just pick one sound, one letter, the letter A. The letter A represents the R sound in the word angle. It represents air in many. It represents or in hall, A in date. It combines with E in heat and hemorrhage and so on. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. Writing, which is the last stage and the most complex, just like with speaking and listening, is another pole on the language communication encounter. The teaching of writing skill, therefore, should evolve from a mastery of the three earlier skills, especially reading. The learner-writer faces the challenge of representing words like homonyms, words with similar spellings or sounds, but different meanings. For example, plain, P-L-A-I-N, which means simple, easy, not complicated, and P-L-A-N-E, like an aeroplane. They are pronounced the same way, they mean different things. To sew, to work with needle and thread, is different from a sew, an adult female hug. The writer needs to be able to translate from what he hears or what he reads to perfect his meaning. It is part of the teachers, that is the pilot's job, to provide needed simulation to bridge the gap. Also, efforts at implementing the curriculum of a second language may be hindered by inadequate selection of teaching materials, inappropriate curriculum content and teaching methods, and poor infrastructural facilities. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, some years ago, I did a little survey of textbooks recommended for kindergartens. And I was shocked to discover words like igloo, rhinoceros, xylophone in books meant for kindergartens. And I asked the class of teachers, seasoned teachers, what kind of animal is an igloo? None of them knew. Now, an igloo is a small building made from snow where Eskimos live in Canada, northern Canada. Now, even if the child is told the meaning, of what use is the igloo, the knowledge of igloo to that child? Wasted knowledge. I'm sure everybody here went to a nursery school, a primary school, and this is one of the popular rhymes we sang then. Remember? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty together again. Now, who the heck is Humpty Dumpty? To the child, it means nothing. The Wolffian hypothesis of linguistic relativity talks about language being reflective of the culture and the culture of a people also influencing the language they use. So, what is the position of Humpty Dumpty in the cultural milieu of the Nigerian child? Can we look at this? I'll sing it. Who sat and watched my infant head when sleeping on my cradle bed, and tears of sweet affection shed my mom. We cannot resonate with that because it talks about things we are familiar with. I wonder why nobody is singing about men. But don't worry, Humpty Dumpty that fell from a wall was a man. Now, what should be? Language is a part of a network of closely or remotely linked units of social interaction of both innate and environmental factors. Language will therefore be taught along the trajectory of natural language development. As a child develops, it develops language. The teaching of language should follow that trajectory. Government curriculum planners and teachers across all levels of education should identify various transactional and international needs to plan and implement curricular and extracurricular activities to develop language proficiency in learners. Now, English, like we said, in Nigeria has occurred among numerous other languages, and therefore it has its different dialectal nuances. English language is used across Nigeria for inclusiveness, but it portrays pronunciational and sometimes structural nuances of the host community. For instance, if you hear somebody say, "Are you a child?" you can know that is a Yoruba man or woman. The oil is very heavy. You can easily know where that has come from. And somebody said, "I was born in 1975. Easily we know where that has come from. Now, those are the nuances that are brought about by the interference on the mother tongue in what we use. Now, in 2004, I was involved in a survey which midwifed the reading program we had for Ogun State government then. And in one of the schools we visited in Ijebu area, a JS1 pupil was asked to read a sentence. The boy got to the edge of the river. Now, in the boy's cultural milieu, D and G don't come together. So he had problems. And he said the boy got to the edge of the river. We laughed, but we understood where that was coming from. That was the influence. So teachers should be aware of such cultural backgrounds of their pupils and should find a way to inculcate it in the teaching process. For instance, the teacher teaching word recognition sometimes has problems mentioning objects which the students know, but they don't know the names of these subjects in English. And sometimes the teacher needs to give a cue. So a teacher holds up a book and wants the class to repeat. And he says, "This is a book." Kimwe, and the class replies, "This is a book." He has given them a cue in what they understand. Now, there are so many challenges faced by teachers of English in Nigeria, including the students' linguistic background, limited instructional resources, large size classes. I watched a student years ago, a school in Lagos. She struggled to teach a class. I was a supervisor. I couldn't hear what she was saying. So I called her out to save her. "What's the size of your class?" She said, 180. "How many classes do you teach?" 3. I said, "Very honestly, do you think you are teaching?" She said, "No." And I can't blame her. For 6 years, some people will pretend to teach. For 6 years, some people will pretend to learn. And we recycle ignorance. Now, diverse linguistic backgrounds of both teachers and students sometimes create problems. I do this to my students also. I have dictation exercises and I say, write these words, suit. And some will write S-O-O-T, some S-U-I-T. I say, you don't know how to suit a ball. And they say, oh, you mean shoot. I say, yes, suit because I'm from Ogbomoso. Apologies to anybody from Ogbomoso here. Now, teachers sometimes have limited, unstructured, and sometimes irrelevant exposure to professional development while on the job. But thank God that is improving. Going on that. There's a growing need to balance English language curriculum components with contemporary social and occupational needs. Remember, we run a knowledge economy now. Not too much grammar, but we need language in whatever sphere. Now, what have been my roles? Not just identifying these problems, also maybe solving them. Years ago, I started this little journey of creating a readable, easily adjustable set of materials to young learners. I titled it The Little Teacher. And it presented concepts in basic education, basic science, home studies, religious studies, English, composition writing, and a lot of things in very simple, racy English. It was well accepted, but it had to stop for distribution logistics. Now, this is just one of the ways. We need to commit more to training existing and new teachers in the science and art of instructional communication and technology in education. Suggested steps. If the teacher wants to recreate himself, that is, if the teacher wants to replicate his knowledge in the student, he should perhaps take some of the steps. Teachers should ensure effective and complete communication. Communication is only complete when it reaches the audience and there is a response. If it is only one way, we have only informed, we have not communicated. The teacher should introduce technical infrastructure to make learning as lifelike as possible. Teachers should take cognizance of the pragmatics of communication, especially informal types. We seem to be teaching English just for them to answer questions, to communicate formally. But we all know that most of the communication activities that take place are informal. Somebody must teach them. For instance, I asked students, who taught you to abuse? Who taught you to tell lies? These are things we pick up. Imagine if we are able to properly structure them to communicate properly informally. Maybe life will be easier for everybody. The teacher also needs to draw students' attention to the meanings of what they say. I've discovered that many Nigerians these days don't pay attention to what they say. And therefore, many people repeat the same errors that is used everywhere. I'll just mention a few and maybe we can recognize. You've heard of be rest assured. How can you say be rest? Appropriately, it should be rest assured. I hear a lot of Gen Zs, asides. They say asides. When it's not a soliloquy in a dramatic performance, it should be besides. I also hear, anyways, I'm sure we are very familiar with that. I don't know which dictionary that came from, but I know anyway is a more appropriate option to use. On a particular radio station, I hear this every morning. Something is making a round, whereas it should be making the rounds. God help us. Learners should be helped to pay closer attention to the content of their utterances rather than blindly imitating popular language use. In summary, language acquisition is natural and structured, and its teaching, in the case of English, should be patterned after the natural course. Language use should not be artificial. It should not be something we need to think. If you are going to quarrel with somebody, you may know you are going to quarrel, but you don't plan the sentences to use before you get there. It should come spontaneously, and we should encourage learners to acquire spontaneity in language. Curriculum designs in terms of content and pedagogy should focus on helping learners to achieve competence in the various communication domains. Learners at all levels must be trained to attain communicative competence as well as linguistic competence. Communication, like culture, is dynamic. So must the content and context of its teaching be. Learners must be trained to preserve their sociocultural heritage through the creative use of English language to reflect their cultural affinity rather than seek to mimic an artificial and unfamiliar tenor. Now, to achieve this, we made some general recommendations. One, writers and selectors of children's literature should make reading text more fun, especially at the initial levels. As a very young learner, I had this gift of knowing very interesting novels by the illustration on their back. If there was no illustration, it wasn't a good novel. Writers should be trained to adapt this. Teachers should bring back the library corner to the classroom. I wonder if we still have that in any classroom. Teachers should endeavor to give life to all subjects in writing, selection of text, and teaching. It enhances and motivates private reading and comprehension. Teachers should be committed to mastering all aspects of reading text, possibly including the etymology of canon expressions. Also, they should encourage constant use of the dictionary. It's very important. Children should be exposed to an open variety of reading materials, including novels, magazines, comics, newspapers. They should be nurtured to find reading a pastime to increase their vocabulary range. Technology should be integrated into teaching through the use of online resources, language learning applications, and multimedia materials. The curricula for preparation of teachers to teach English language should be reviewed at all levels to cover more than the formal rules of language use. A process should be set in motion to train authors, especially of juvenile texts, in the rudiments of language acquisition and how this will form the basis for preparing reading materials for beginner classes. I always make the Queen Primer a model. A cat, a fat cat sat, a fat cat sat on a mat. Emphasis is on that R sound that children are very comfortable with before you move on into more difficult words like igloo and rhinoceros and xylophone. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, navigating the labyrinth of life has been a bittersweet journey. The dizzying heights of success and the benumbing depths of failures and disappointments. But through the whelming floods and consuming furnace, the omnipotent, omnimerciful, and omnigracious has been forever present. The journey that climaxes in a milestone today is a testimony of abundant, unending, and pervasive grace. For this, I owe a fat debt of gratitude. To my alma mater, the Methodist Boys High School, Lagos, Nigeria's second oldest secondary school, the national presidents, past and present, the EXCOs, the Crystal Group, MBHS Lagos Overs Association, and the Ogun State branch, I remember and thank you for the beautiful time spent together in the service of your dear alma mater. Non-CB classmates at the 73-75 higher school SAT class of Adeola Odutola College, Ijebu-Ode, and colleagues from these institutions present are appreciated. Interestingly, I just got to the point of acknowledging the presence of my Kabiyesi, my own Kabiyesi, His Royal Highness Oba Abdulrazak Adeshina Adenogba, the Ebumawe of Agoiwe. A ruler in whom the rich tradition of our ancestors and modernity are perfectly blended. I am most grateful and thankful for your presence, sir. Kabiyesi. My Lord Bishop, Right Reverend Dr. Peter Rotimi Oludipe, the Diocesan Ijebu Anglican Communion, and Mama Ijebu Professor Abimbola Oludipe. I thank you for coming. Our late Diocesan Ijebu Anglican Diocese, Right Reverend Dr. Ezekiel Ayodele Awoshoga, Mama Florence Awoshoga, I thank you very much for being here. My vicar, Venerable Alex Agbola and Mama Obalende, my former vicars, Papa Venerable and Mrs. Tunde Abiala, Venerable and Mrs. Kola Pasamoye, Venerable and Mrs. Idowu Oshofora, Venerable and Mrs. S.O.B. Omidiji, and other friends in the ordained ministry, members of the Parish Church Council, Holy Trinity Anglican Church, Obalende, the evangelism and editorial committees of the church, members of the Diocesan Education Board, members of the Diocesan Board, especially the Chancellor, Otumba Shegun Demorin, Otumba Kunle Kalejayi, SON, Chief Rufus Odusoya. I thank you for being pillars of support. Members of Gideon's International Ijebu Camp, principals, staff, and students of Anglican Girls Secondary School Private Ijebu Ijebu Anglican Diocesan Comprehensive College, Igon Ikpabi, and Tasholani University of Education Secondary School, I appreciate you all. The Oske Cascade Tassel community at home and in the diaspora, including former provosts and registrars and vice chancellors, including Professor Kayode Oyeshiko, the pioneer vice chancellor, emeritus professor of the university. I thank you very much for coming. Professor Shegun Awonusi, the second vice chancellor and the sacrificial lamb on whose shoulders the burden of Tasud's survival rested. I appreciate you. Auntie Yemisi, Professor Oluyemisi Obilade, the third vice chancellor, and the amazing that widened the gates of academic adventurism in the university. Professor Abayomi Adelaja Aribabu, the first homebred vice chancellor and a man with a legacy, and now the Commissioner for Education, Science, and Technology. I welcome you. And our own very dear Professor Oluwale Banjo, a friend of the masses and amiable gentleman, ably assisted by Professor Adeogun, DVC, Mr. Dapoke, Registrar, Mr. Oguneye, the Bossa, Chief Mrs. Shola Oyeshiko, immediate past, and current acting librarian, Mr. Quadri. I appreciate you. I appreciate the leadership of the union on campus, ASU, SANO, NATS, NASU, especially contemporaries in the trenches in the days of Koasu, at the branch, state, and national escorts. Comrade Samuel Akindele, Professor Ademola da Silva, late Alhaji Nuruddin Shodipe, Venerable Tunde Okutubo, Professor Moshe Ogundipe, Dr. Rotimi Ononuga, and others. I pray that the Lord will continue to grant government the grace, management, the wisdom, and us all the desired answers to our prayers for a healthier, worthier, and more beneficial work environment. In my career sojourn, the Lord has made my path to cross with many people, some dead, others still with us, who have made indelible marks in my life. I celebrate friends and colleagues in my neighborhood, members of the Peace Estate community, Odraye, led by Reverend Canon Adelaja, late Honorable Dari and Professor Pose Ewumi, late Professors George and Iyabode Weni, Patrick and Mrs. Osai, the Oliides, the Obalawas, the Yusuf, Babalolas, and others. God bless you richly. I also acknowledge the impact of colleagues from various colleges, departments, and units in the university, especially my HOD, Professor Mabekoje, and all members of the wonderful English family. I salute you all, including my own dear OC query, Dr. Damilola Oludukia. The English department is indeed one big family that I am very proud and privileged to belong to, and I value the bond of love that we share. To this set of people who, though not of Tasud, are partners and mentors in various ways, Professor Albert Lekon Oyeleye, who couldn't be here today because There's a celebration for him tomorrow, and preparations are on now. Whose selfless trip to Ijebu-Ode from Ibadan prodded me to embark on that journey into the MA program, and who stood by me all the way. Big thanks. My PhD supervisor, brother, and friend, Professor Ayogun Shiji, Professors Nike Akinjobi, Ayo Kende, Dele Adeyanju, Akin Odebumi, and Ayo Shisawo, all of the English Department, University of Ibadan. And to Professor COO Kolawole, I say thank you for being worthy models of academic support. I also thank the convener and members of the Friends of the Inaugural Lecturers Group for their kind and generous support. So also Mr. and Mrs. Rotimi, Adekunle Sogbesan, Ayo and Alicia, the DA Sogbesans, the Aisiris, Mr. Shino Adekoya, Mrs. Dupe Ogunyemi, Mrs. BC Oduyemi, Professors C.O. Williams, Femi Adequiton, Mrs. Rufus Adekoya, Abimbola Kasali, Taiwo and Kehinde Niyobadino, Demola Adesa, the Sholankes, and numerous other friends for kind gestures. Colleagues in the College of Humanities are much appreciated, especially my former dean and friend of many years, Professor Rashid Ajetumobi, my current dean, Professor Jimmy Ogunaike, all other professors in the college, doctors, and friends. Special gratitude to colleagues and friends in the university across different departments. I salute and thank you all. I thank Dr. and Mrs. Oluni, Epic International Schools. And once again, I welcome and recognize and appreciate my brother, my friend, my classmate, my KBSC, Oba Dr. Toye Alatishe, the Gbegonde of Ososa. You are most welcome, sir. I recall, especially with nostalgia, intimate working relationships with the following in pursuit of lofty ideals for the university's progress. Professors Abayomi Arigbabu, Mushe Ugundipe, Funke Ekine, Ekundayo Oladipo, Niran Adetoro, Jimo Owoyele, and recall the dedication of Dr. Rotimi Onaduga, Venerable Tunde Ugutubo, in the service of the system. May God continue to uplift you all. To my dear mom, strong, virtuous Comfort Adeola, whose short but impactful sojourn on earth ended 58 years, 2 months, and 14 days ago. Your strong legacy of discipline and self-control remains a lifeline. I owe you so much, and I dedicate this to you. To my dear dad, Daniel, your legacy of honesty, peace, and discipline, handed over 39 years, 5 months, and 1 day ago, will always endure. This, dear dad, is for you. My dear mom, late Mrs. Abiodun Wuraola Sogbesan, you taught us discipline and care, and though you dropped the pen too for greater service above, I celebrate you today in this. To my dear siblings, Brother Tunde, late Sister Yabo, Duro, Funke, Shade, Dupe, late but beloved, Tope, BC, Goke, Bisola, and Kule, and your spouses, I celebrate your love, the unflinching support and encouragement. I also celebrate all Sogbesan descendants at home and in diaspora, especially Mrs. B.F. Shonaike, Mommy Festa, Bale I.B. Sogbesan, Chief Sir Taye Sogbesan, Professor Dapo Sogbesan, Pastor Daisy Sogbesan, Polonsho Shusami, and others. I thank you very much. To my wonderful in-laws, the Idris family, Grandpa, late, and Grandma, the Oduyemis, the Okuta days, the Agubia days, the Ajibodons, Barrister and Dr. Mrs. Dennis and Remy Aisri, and the rest. I thank you all for your kindness. And yes, the inner caucus, members of the Dele Sogbesan gang. From the matron of the home, my worthy and virtuous pillar of support, a woman of immeasurable courage and strength, my prompter in moments of despondency, a woman with a very soft and loving heart, shrouded in a protective facade of stoic restraint. My dear wife and partner, Ayodele Olabisi, how can I ever thank you enough? To our wonderful children, Ayobamidele, Tolulope, and darling Alicia, Segun Timileyin, and Demola Adeyemi. Thank you for being wonderful, considerate, and loving members of the team. Your combined trust, support, and subtle challenge have encouraged me. May the gracious and merciful Lord continue to uphold us. This is to us all. And finally, to Tasut, to which 63.6% of my earthly existence has been committed in service. I owe a fat debt of gratitude and solemnly pledge a renewed and enduring allegiance. May the university continue to abound in grace and glory as we lift up the Tasut song. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, this is not a nunc dimittis, but coming close to being an exaugural. It is just natural to reflect on this journey's beginning, its course, and to pray for a brilliant and glorious future for our dear university. Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished audience, this is my story, this is my journey, this is my gratitude.
Make this song music. Reggae singer, sing me a song. Well, I'm just recovering from that psychedelic shock. I've had an overdose of that rock and roll stew.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to believe that this lecture is very educative, because I want to tell you that the only poem I know is not more than Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And for me to hear so many poems being recited by a professor, yes, I'm so happy about that. And I want to believe we've learned a lot of, new things in this lecture. It is today that I know that linguistics are the rules used by language. And today also, I know that language makes us understand our culture better. And today also, I now know that language affects pronunciations. You will see how a Calabar man will pronounce. It's quite different from how an Ibadan man will pronounce words. It is today that I now know that language do affect pronunciation. So if an Ibadan man wants to pronounce chicken, he can pronounce it as chicken. Yes. And if you want to pronounce IICC shooting stars, you can say IICC shooting stars. So it is permitted. I want to believe that Professor Bandele, has told us how we can learn language, the problems in learning the thing, and all the solutions being provided. He gave us reasons, identified for the complexity of learning English language. As one, non-consideration for the appropriateness of language content to the level of language development of the young. Impropriateness to the language content of the learning material inadequate teachers and teaching methods. And the last one is the impact of new technologies, including social media, on language learning and interpersonal communication, etc. He also mentioned that to correct the perceived faults in English language learning and communication processes, remedial actions are preferred, including introduction of language materials for highly learners should be graduated along the social, mental, and physical development stages of learners. Language learning materials from basic level should be socially and culturally relevant to the learners. And lastly, teaching of English language for purposes other than formal interactions should also be emphasized, including for cross-cultural and cross-generational and empathic communication. And he also mentioned that in carrying out all these tasks, teachers are faced with challenges, which include teachers and student linguistic backgrounds, which are usually non-native English, lack of inappropriate teaching materials, poor motivation for both teachers and learners. Well, I don't want to believe that is happening in Taswet because professors of English are well motivated. Large classes, teachers, inappropriate language, and technological exposure, etc. Well, on this note, I want to believe that, well, I've summarized all what the lecturers have given to us this afternoon in just 5 to 10 minutes. And I want to believe that Professor Sogbesan has already paid his due. And on this note, I want to acquaint and discharge him, so he can now sit properly on that chair as a professor of English. Congratulations.
Thank you, the Vice Chancellor. Why sleeping on my cradle bed, my father? I just decided to change that. So you can quote me, that okay, 2025. So ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you once again to Tai Solarin University of Education, the first University of Education in Nigeria, the second in Africa, the 8th in the world, and the first and the only university adopted by federal government of Nigeria. As if that is not enough, the inaugural lecture presenter today has also made history. As somebody who has seen it all, he was with us when we were Oske. He was here when we were Taske. He was here when we transformed to Tarsud. And today he is the first person to deliver inaugural lecture after the adoption. So I congratulate you, Professor Sogbesan, as we welcome you all once again. He has already paid due recognition and acknowledged all the VIPs here, but I will be compelled by protocol to still recognize some of our very important personalities here. And I want to start with the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, our own Professor Abayomi Arigbabu. You're welcome, sir. We also have here the pioneer Vice Chancellor and his amiable wife, Professor Emeritus Professor Olukayode Oyeshiko. You're welcome. And Mama Oyeshiko, our former librarian. You are also welcome, ma. We also have here the representative of the Vice Chancellor of Lagos State University of Education, Professor Bibi Lafiaje. Is represented here by Dr. M.A. Shitu. Please just wave your hand wherever you are. Oh, you're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. We also have Professor Niro Adetoro, the Vice Chancellor of the Raj University of Medical Services. Dr. Dupe Oba Adenuga, the Provost Sikiru Adetono College of Education, Science and Technology, Omu Ijebu. Where are you? Okay, thank you. Honorable Moshood Olanrewaju Oshun, Member, House of Representatives. The Honorable, you are welcome. Thank you very much. Right Reverend Dr. Peter Olurotimi Oludipe, the Bishop of Ijebu Diocese. Baba, you are welcome, sir. Venerable Idowu Osunfowora, retired, former Vicar, Holy Trinity Anglican Church. Thank you very much, Daddy. You're welcome. And Principal and staff of Anglican Girls Grammar School, Private Ijebu-Ode. Please, you are all so welcome. We thank you. We recognize you. Gideon's International Ijebu-Ode. Special. Then Methodist Boys High School Old Boys. All of you, we welcome. And especially now, I want to especially recognize the Royal Highnesses that are here with us. His Royal Majesty Oba Rasak Adenuba the Ebumawe of Agowe. Kabiesi. His Royal Majesty Oba Dr. Toye Alatishe, the Gbegonde of Ososa, and incidentally, our landlord at Ososa. Thank you, Kabiesi. We welcome you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this program, and I want to invite the Vice Chancellor once again to declare this ceremony closed.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to declare this inaugural lecture ceremony closed. Thank you for coming. God bless you.
Ẹ̀kọ́ dára púpọ̀, ẹ̀kọ́ ló láyé táwa yìí fẹ́. Ẹ̀kọ́ dára púpọ̀, ẹ̀kọ́ ló láyé táwa yìí fẹ́. Ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní dẹni gíga, ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní dépò ọlá. ẹ̀dàkúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa. Ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní jẹ́ni gíga, ẹ̀kọ́ ló ń gbé ní dépò ọlá. Ẹ̀dàkúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa. Ẹ̀dàkúnyé ẹ̀yìn òbí wa lẹ́bàá lówó kẹsọ̀kẹ̀ tọ́ wa. Ọmọ tí kò fẹ́ kọ́, ó dání lójú pé yóò kíyà. Ọmọ tí kò bá ẹ̀kọ́, ó dání lójú pé yóò kíyà. Iṣẹ́ burúkú. Make me some music, reggae singer, sing me a song.